Welcome back on Brighton Beat, today with Mirrors. Mirrors follow the straightest of lines. Mirrors are parallel to everything and equal to nothing. Mirrors are minimally over the top. Mirrors are pop noir. Guys, thank you very much for making some time.
No problem, thank you. No problem.
You've chosen Brighton as your spiritual home.
Yes.
Why?
Well, none of us are actually from Brighton originally. I think we all just sort of gravitated towards it for sort of, I suppose, the freedom of expression and just the fact that it's such a cosmopolitan and vibrant city. I really do feel like it gives you sort of a free rein to do whatever you please. If you sort of wake up one morning and you put on a slightly wacky shirt and you look at yourself in the mirror and think, well, I'm not sure, I feel a bit edgy today. You'll walk down the street and see someone roller skating wearing hot pants and suddenly you don't feel quite so self-conscious. So.
Sorry. 2 out of 4 of you, yourself, James and Tate, come from another music experience, Mumra.
Yeah.
You've played together for quite a few years. You were doing really well, but then the journey seemed to have come to an end.
Yeah. Well, it was sort of it naturally happened. Really, I was in that. That was the first musical output I ever had. They were sort of my best friends at school, and it was sort of just a fun project. But it wasn't really taken as anything more than that. And we did very well. And we had a really good time. I travelled the world with it. But once the album had come out, it felt like time to do something a little more challenging, and I met this chap here, and we started talking theoretically about a different band or certainly a different project, and Mirrors sort of formed from the ashes of that.
Joe actually joined the group last. What kind of needs of the group did he answer?
I think he brings a lot to the group. Joe's a very talented musician and has a background in production as well, so in terms of a songwriting and musical point of view, it naturally made sense, and he's a mutual friend of all of ours as well. In terms of the live show, he's a good drummer, and we wanted that sort of visceral element of somebody playing live drums in the band. It was something we talked about from the very beginning that we always wanted. I think something that can happen quite often with electronic bands is it tends to be sort of construed as someone playing a laptop and sort of singing over the top and a bit karaoke. You know, we really wanted to be a live band and to do as much as we possibly could live. And Joe, as I mentioned, is a very good musician and a friend of ours, so he slotted into that quite naturally.
There's also a sort of dynamic thing where we wanted the idea of 4 for us. Yeah. It was just silly, really, but just the symmetry that brought to the band sort of made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. 4 is definitely the best number to have in a band.
Your music flag is definitely electropop, synth pop, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So musical influences are easy to draw. Depeche Mode, OMD, Kraftwerk, but you don't just stop to your music output, is it? Like,
no.
You see, I almost want to talk about Mirrors' artistic output.
Well, I just want to touch on the music bit a little bit more, because those bands, as much as they are influences, we also have a big influences in post-punk and krautrock and hip-hop and techno and all sorts of other things as well. But I thought it was worth mentioning that because it can be easy to sort of throw out those sort of early 80s bands, which are obviously, you know, massively important to us, but I just put those other things out there anyway. Artistically, yeah, I mean, we always talked about creating a world, something that people could fully immerse themselves in from the outset, so that the band wasn't purely about the music.
You're very much in control of everything, Mirrors. Since you started playing together last year, you've been chased by big record labels, but you wanted to make sure that you would go for a record label that would really understand the band's ambitions.
Yeah.
And you finally signed up with Skint. Why?
The main reason we signed up with Skint is because they're a Brighton-based record label, and pretty much everybody that we work with now is based in Brighton, and we like that sort of family feel and the fact that we can, you know, talk to people face to face if we need to, as opposed to sending out thousands of emails about any particular subject. as they're a slightly smaller label as well, we knew that they'd basically give us more sort of creative freedom to do with what we please, which is something that you don't always get on a major label.
I think as well with A&R, it can be easy for them to sort of want to imprint ideas, because that's basically their job, is a liaison between the sort of record label and the band. Whereas with a band like this, we had really set ideas on what we wanted to do coming out of the blocks, which made it much easier to sort of head towards a independent.
Absolutely. I mean, they signed us knowing what we were and what we wanted to do, and they've given us sort of all the freedom to do that, really, haven't they?
Yeah.
Now I'm interested in the creative process, from songwriting to the video production to the live show.
Right.
How does it happen for you?
Well, okay, so songwriting, what tends to happen is I have a little piano in my house. So I've always been the sort of, I was the songwriter in my previous band, and I've always been fairly confident with melody. So what tends to happen is I'll write a basic melody and vocal line and then bring it, and then at that stage we'll look to how we're going to build the track in a studio environment. So at that point there's no people in a room jamming it out, it is built block by block. And occasionally it won't work and we'll have to strip and go right back, and there'll end up being 4 or 5 different manifestations of the same song until we end up with something that we consider mirrors. That tends to be the way that we write our music.
It's probably not the most sort of traditional songwriting sense, but it really works for us, because we like you said, we like to be in control of everything. We really explore every avenue of the song before we let it loose, so to speak.
It also means that we can concentrate more on the sonic elements of a track, as opposed to just the melodies, which a lot of bands do.
What do you mean?
The sonic as in the sounds
within the track.
The sounds within the song, which are for us like as important. Well, maybe not as important, but they certainly bring a sort of texture to certain tracks.
You take a lot of care in details, in the aesthetic, in your image, in the form, if you'd like, of what you deliver. What is the message behind it? Is there any message?
I think the message is just that we do think about everything we do within the band, and that if you see something that is mirrors, you can be sure that it hasn't just happened by accident, and that it has been a sort of thought out process, and we've really put that thought into it.
It's art for art's sake.
Exactly.
You've been praised left, right and centre. I couldn't come across a bad review. You must have been criticised.
We have
by
definitely
mistake,
been
criticised. What was the worst critic?
We get criticised quite often, really.
Yeah.
I think what we do sort of polarises people, because obviously some people think that the imagery and what we do and the visuals come across as quite pretentious and quite pompous. We think it just shows a little bit of initiative, personally.
Yeah.
But the thing that does scare us, possibly, is the idea of being considered derivative to some of the bands we get compared to. We like to think of ourselves as a contemporary band. We live in a modern world. We've all got iPhones and Blackberries and email, and just the things that are around us that we have to live through every day make us a modern band, we think. Plus there are production techniques as well, having that we've produced it ourselves in a modern way with modern compression and modern, I can go on, but that would be the thing that scares us anyway.
I think we've always evoked a strong reaction with people, like James said, whether it polarises people for the good or the bad, but I think it's always better to evoke a strong reaction, whether it be positive or negative, than no reaction at all. Yeah.
Considering all your artistic interests, is it too much to say that you want to launch a new artistic movement?
I don't know if we want to launch a new artistic movement as such. What we'd certainly like to do is just sort of make a dent, be it a very small one or not, in people's perceptions of pop music and how they perceive it. We consider ourselves a pop band, but maybe not in the traditional sense. I think that would be what we'd really like to aspire to do.
Yeah, how pop music is consumed, whether or not that is possible to change people. But like we were talking earlier about the live show and the idea of it being a more interactive experience, I think that's certainly an interesting idea that not a lot of bands have maybe indulged in yet.
2010 is going really well for you guys.
Yeah.
Very well.
Record deal, a new single, then in 2011 a new album. You're gigging all over the country and in Europe, supporting OMD.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing.
Well done for that. And you're coming back to Brighton on the 28th of August
Yes,
to audio.
Yes.
Yes.
Headlining this time.
Yes.
That's correct.
Brilliant. How are you feeling about it?
Yes, it should be really good.
Yeah.
We haven't had much of a time to sort of discuss what we'll be able to do differently for it.
No,
Because we like to change our sort of our Brighton shows, make sure that there's something different happening each time. I think we've got a couple of new tracks though that maybe people haven't heard yet, so that'll be something. But yeah, it should be really good fun.
We always feel that the pressure a little bit more in Brighton. We refer to it such a lot in interviews and as an inspiration and such. So yeah, it'll be exciting.
Well, guys, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And can't wait to see you live.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.